visionselfhealing.com. And in this blog, I want to talk about the process of looking and how important it is for people with low vision or vision difficulties to engage the process of looking. What happens when you start to have vision problems is you start to disengage visually from the world. You start using aids, technical aids. Glasses are the simplest thing, and then you can use magnifiers, and there's all sorts of, when you get into the low vision world, there's all sorts of contraptions and video and all of these new technologies, which are great in a lot of ways for enabling people with low vision to cope in the world better. But to me, the problem becomes you start to disengage from your natural way of looking at the world. That it's fine to have all these technologies to help you cope, but you also need to be looking at the world. If you stop looking at the world, in my opinion, your condition is going to get worse. So maybe these technological aids, it's a lot like glasses in a sense, that you become dependent on the technology, and then your natural vision sort of loses its acuity, uses its functionality, because you're now so dependent on these aids. And really, it's just a process. Your brain starts shutting off using your natural vision. So for me, one of the processes that I've used in order to keep my engagement visually with the world is photography. I guess I didn't really, I grew up doing photography, so it's not like I adopted it for this purpose, but it does seem to keep me visually engaged with the world. So I wanted to share a little bit of my process of photography. And I grew up near Yosemite, so I grew up with the whole Ansel Adams aesthetic of everything being very, very sharp, clear. That was sort of the goal of photography in my mind, was to make everything as sharp as possible. And over the years I played with blur, and actually maybe 20 years ago I really started playing with blur more, but I really didn't connect it with my vision, and how my vision was blurry and I was trying to make everything clear, which was sort of the paradox. So as I began to play more and more with blur, the aesthetics seemed to appeal to me more and more as well. I wasn't struggling so much to make everything sharp. Well, maybe 5 years ago I was in Japan, and I met a man there, and again I was in Japan trying to make things clear. I was playing with blur as well, but I still had that in the back of my mind. And I met a man who had actually studied with Ansel Adams years ago, a Japanese photographer. And he introduced me to pinhole photography. And so when I was in Japan, I started playing with pinholes. I actually immediately ordered a pinhole. It's what's called a pinhole body cap. So you take a regular digital SLR, and you put a body cap with a hole in it, just a small pinhole in it. And that's what I did. I took off my lens. I bought all these lenses that were the most clear, high acuity lenses I could find, and a camera that had a very sharp sensor, because I was going for clarity. And I put on this pinhole lens that made everything blurry, basically. And it was a freeing experience. So I started shooting in this style. This is actually clearer than I'm shooting now. I actually put this on a tripod, but this is one of the first images I made in Japan. These sand cones in a Japanese garden. And for me, it was like I didn't have to focus anymore. I wasn't worried about things being clear anymore. I wasn't trying to focus, with all these different aids. Again, I was using aids to try and help me focus the camera, and worried constantly that it wouldn't be sharp enough. So I just gave up on the sharpness. So now I'm looking at the world, in some ways, by disengaging it for having to be real sharp and allowing my looking to be as clear as it is, I could relax more. And so this is the style I started photographing in, and got even blurrier from there. I started hand holding it and pushing up the grain on the thing, making it blurrier in that sense too, and making it closer to my own vision. So this is my style now. I also can't see the reality of a pinhole is that it's a very small hole. So when I look through the viewfinder, I basically see nothing. So I have to walk around basically just sort of firing off. I find something that interests me and I fire at it. I just have to let go. That it's going to be, I have to let go of composition, obviously sharpness, and it's a more intuitive process. So that's my new style. Oh, I wanted to tell you also, I also then went to New York and met with a group of photographers there who were more blind than I was. There's a book called Shooting Blind that you can look up. These are a bunch of very visually impaired people who meet in a basement in New York City, and they have figured out a way to photograph. They set up a scene, they use flashlights, all sorts of portable lighting, and they open up the shutter and then they paint light on their subjects. And they have a photographer there who helps them out, a sighted photographer, and it's very interesting. He verbally describes the image. So they make the photograph 1 week, they come back, he makes prints, and then he verbally describes the prints to them. Some of them can actually hold them up enough to see something. But again, that was inspiring to me. It was like, wow, these guys can make, I thought the stuff they were creating, I happened to be in New York when I saw them for an annual show of art photography from all over the world, called APAD, and I was there looking at the photographs there, and then I was looking at these guys' photographs, and I swear their photographs were much better than what I was seeing in the gallery world. So anyway, that was another inspiration for me, was seeing these really basically almost blind people making really beautiful photographs. Can't quite explain how they do it. So I can't quite explain this either to a certain degree. So anyway, that's the way I use photography as a way of engaging, looking with the world, which is part of the process of healing vision, is starting to engage your natural vision again. And we differentiate here. Seeing is sort of like what just happens when you open your eyes. Looking is engaging with what you're seeing, is engaging the brain in what you're seeing. So in that sense, you need to relax into whatever you can see. You're looking at what you really can see. So if all you can see is, some blurry form, that's what you see. And you look at that blurry form, you follow that blurry form. If all you can see is light and dark, that's what you look at. Oh, that's light, that's dark, that's light, that's dark. Shapes. For me, I don't see a lot of color because of the optic atrophy, and I'm colorblind as well. So I'm looking a lot at light and form on things and not so much at color. It's actually good for me to also look at the color I can see. I don't do a lot of that, I have to admit. So that's sort of like what you can see, and then challenging a little bit to just go to the edge of what you can see and push it a little further. It's kind of the reverse process of the technological approach. It seems like in the technology, you're seeing where your deficits are, and you bring in technology in to fix that. You bring it in to bridge that. And that's good. But what it does is it means you never challenge, like here's your limitation. Technology comes in and kind of behind it actually and gives you more capability, but it means you never challenge your vision to see a little bit better, because you're always putting the technology to fix that. And glasses are really the same thing. So engage looking as a way of improving your vision, and engage your brain with looking at the world. That's what I'm trying to encourage. So I'm going to take the camera around a little bit around my neighborhood and show you the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So I'm out on my deck actually. I haven't even gotten out the front door yet. And you don't even have to go very far to see stuff, or to look at stuff, shall we say. Just see this shadow. This is the kind of thing I get intrigued by, is the shadow of that palm there on the wall. And the way the pots, the circles of the pots. See the light hitting the sides of the pots there, looking at tracing the edge of the pots with your eye. And then the shadow and light on the wall. That's what intrigued me about this particular scene. This is the kind of thing I would be looking at. So I like the light on these staircases. See the spindles on the staircase and the light on the posts at the end? That's the kind of thing my eye is drawn to as well. So I'm tracing the pin spindles, the railing. That's it. So now here, I like the beam of light going across the garage door. It's a very plain garage door, but I liked the way the light is spilling across the door and the shape of the architecture, and then those two little windows, or whatever they are, just sort of little accents. So I notice all these things. I'm engaging with them. So that was a quick trip around my neighborhood to take a few photographs. I hope it gave you a sense of how I engage with my world visually. It's paying attention to the things that intrigue me visually, that are within my range and maybe a little beyond my range. So I'm challenging myself to look at the world more, to not simply accept my limitations and say, well, I can't see, so I'm not going to look. So I'm engaging my brain, engaging my whole visual system to look at details in the world and to see the shapes and forms, or whatever you can see, whatever your limitations are. I would encourage you to start looking at the world, start engaging the world, and use whatever technique, photography, some other form of games, or looking at things, counting things, whatever engages you with the world. Hope this is useful to you, and take it whatever direction it seems to be right, and see for yourself.